Some time ago, I was with a group of clergy. How long ago, as I get older, the time between when it happens and when I remember it seems to vary. But some time ago, I was with a group of clergy talking about scripture and talking about preaching. And one of them asked what I did for preaching, and I said I used the lectionary. And the comment from a majority was, "Oh, well, that's all right, but it's not relevant. I need to find something in Scripture that speaks to today, something that speaks to my people where they are today." And the lectionary doesn't always do that, so I searched the Scripture for the right text. Another one said that he used the Spirit to help him, and he would take the Bible and simply open it. And where it opened, that was his text for his sermon. I'm not quite sure what would happen if it was the Song of Solomon that he opened it to, but nevertheless, that was his method. So I started to think about this morning whether this word from Mark speaks to you where you are. And I know that when I've listened to you in different settings, when I listen to the news, when I look at the paper, we are bombarded daily with the number of COVID cases and the deaths that result. We are talked about about the vaccine and who's getting it and who's not. And we're talking about violence and injustice and talk about division and discord. Does this word speak? All that confronts us. And it reminded me of somebody one time told me, you know what the difference between social media and clowns in the circus is? No, I don't. Clowns in the circus are silent. We listen to so much stuff that bombards us. Maybe we need to go back to that innocent message that we once upon a time taught our children in Sunday school. A message that we repeated over and over and over again about God is love, about what God is all about. And in the innocence of the mind of a child, God is love. Okay. With that in mind, you let the lesson today, the lectionary, speak to you. Jesus comes from the synagogue. If you remember, this is the first chapter of Mark. We've only had 29 verses. First chapter of Mark, he's baptized. He comes out of the water. He goes right into the wilderness and he's tempted. He comes out of the wilderness from temptation and he is confronted right away by the synagogue with healing. People come to him. They can sense that he's different. They come to him and they are after him to bring about a healing. He hardly has time to catch his breath. He goes to Simon's house and Simon's mother is there and they say she's sick. He touches her hand. She gets up and she serves them. Hold that thought. Word goes out that he's at Simon's house. They bring all kinds of people to him. It says the whole city was gathered at the door. Think of the pressure on him. No chance to relax, no chance to breathe. Somebody wanting something from him all the time. Somebody after him, somebody hounding him. He heals them. Finally, evidently, they go away. And we're told in one verse, he gets up and he goes out in the darkness to pray. I want you to think back to your catechism days. And you remember you were taught Jesus is 100% God and Jesus is 100% human. Have I got that right, Sandy? 100% God, 100%. They did teach it that way, didn't they? Shake your head, yes. That's right. Okay. So forget the divine part. We've already seen that with the healing and and God spoke to him, "You are my son, with you I am well pleased." Go to the human part and think about your life and the life of Jesus. Think about the unceasing demands on your life. Think about the pressures and the tensions on your life. Think about the things that just keep piling up for you to do. Think about your fears, your concerns, your worries. Think about the loss that you've experienced. Think about the dangers you face. Think about all the things that goes into everyday living, and ask yourself, what do you pray about? Jesus goes into the darkness to pray. He removes himself from all the clutter and all of the interruptions of life, and he goes into the darkness to pray. Now, we used to have an old saint at church. Everybody loved her. She talked about all the people she prayed for. She wrote down, she had a book, and she used to say she had bowel trouble, and she used to say she did her praying while sitting on the toilet. I'm not sure if that didn't have its own distractions, but nevertheless, she found time to pray. Jesus goes out into the darkness to pray. Why? Because he's human. Because of the things that just overwhelm him. Because of the temptations that he faces. Because of the things that continue to cause him worry and concern. You know, Seal called me last week. She calls me because she knows I'll keep whatever she says in confidence. And she called to say that she had just heard on the news that there was an old man driving the wrong way on I-96. And she called Roger. And she said, Roger, because you know, Roger delivers medicine, so he's out on the road a lot at night. And she said, Roger, where are you? And he says, I'm on I-96. And she says, for heaven's sakes, be careful. I just heard on the news that there's an old man driving the wrong way. There's one car going the wrong way. Be careful. And Roger said, one car? I'm looking at about 10 or 15. It's much easier to go with the flow than to try and go against it. It would have been so much easier for Jesus, so much less stressful, so much less aggravating, so much less frustrating if he'd have turned around and gone with the flow. Instead of bucking the scribes and the Pharisees, instead of mimicking them, he chooses to go against them and speak a different word. But he needs to be reminded. He goes into the darkness to pray. And in the darkness, he discovers an interruption. He discovers that he is reminded of who he is. You are my son. Well, friends, when you go into the darkness of your prayers, you too should be reminded you are his daughter and you are his son. You are anchored in something that no storm can change or shake. You are secured by the love and the mercy of God. And in that security, you find the affirmation to continue your calling, as did Jesus. And what is that calling that you bring to life? If you look at Jesus, you remember the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Jesus is the Word. And what is the Word? It's the Word we teach to children. God is love. And so your message to the world is love. A world that looks almost like it's hopeless, you bring a word of love. A world that sees death, you bring life. A world that seeks despair, you seek hope. We have a lot of gifted people in our community. Carissa and Kathleen and Leslie, Laura and Colby and Natalie and Karen, Rick, all of our healers, all of our healthcare workers, all of our wonderful teachers and educators, our parents, our families, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers and sisters, our pastor, our bishop, more than just doing what they are called to do, more than just being dutiful, more than just being competent, more than just being qualified, skilled, they bring something else. They bring the essence of love, a love that is needed. When the world seems to be beating us down, when things seem to be so against us, when people cling to, to hope that if the vaccine gets out, we will, if we can end this pandemic, if we can just get rid of this, if we could all get vaccinated, we could get back to normal. Well, church, I got to tell you, there is no vaccine for hate. There is no vaccine for bigotry. There is no vaccine for alienation. There is no vaccine for racism or sexism. There is no vaccine for division. The only healing power that this world can deal with and needs is the love that you bring to them. That's not in a vaccine, that's in a life and a witness. And it's only in the darkness and the quiet of prayer that you are renewed and reminded that you are greatly blessed. Now, Stacy said, I like this song, and I do. And you're going to sing it in just a minute. And after a bit, you're going to say, when is this going to end? Because it goes on and on and on. And I spend a little over an hour every morning in prayer. And I have just discovered that I begin to incorporate something that takes almost half the prayer. And it's a selfish thing. And I begin to list all of the blessings that I have experienced in life. I remembered I started with that little song, count your blessings, count them one by one. Start counting. Start counting. In the midst of all that's wrong, in the midst of all the tensions and all the hurt and all the stuff you face, count your blessings. And you discover greatly blessed, highly favored, imperfect, but forgiven child of God. Jesus is in prayer. They come looking for him. They say to him, everybody's looking for you. In other words, come back to what you know. Come back to what's familiar. Come back to what's comforting. And what does he say? Let's go forward. Let's go. I have a message to proclaim because that's what I was called out to do. Greatly blessed, highly favored, imperfect, but forgiven. When you are forgiven, you live in forgiveness, and you can't help but forgive. Greatly blessed, we go forward. Now sing it over and over and over.